Hi, this is James Toto filling in for John Tobacco here on Liquid Lunch, and we are with Michael Schwartz, who is a phenomenal human being. He does a lot of different stuff that's out there. He is the CEO of Health Solutions Network. He does a lot of COVID testing, not just here in New Jersey. He does it in a couple of different states. Michael, welcome to Liquid Lunch, and glad to have you on.
Thanks, James. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So, what are you guys seeing out there with the COVID testing?
Well, there's a lot of aspects to that, James. I don't know what did you want to touch on, the different types, or?
Yeah, the different types of testing and what to look for.
So the public's got to be careful. You know, it's funny. We've been doing this for, this thing's been around since at least last year, but we only started testing on March 16th, which is when the labs that we work with got FDA approval. There's still a lot of confusion out there. You know, people have heard of, obviously, the antibody test. They've heard of this thing called a rapid test, which is an antigen test. And then, of course, PCR testing, polymerase chain reaction testing. We only do PCR testing, which is the only accurate way, the only way to actually find out if you have SARS-CoV-2, which is the COVID-19 virus. So the testing is still a little confusing to the public because in this day and age of everybody wanting instant results, of course, they hear the word rapid and they want to run out for that.
All right. Well, my wife and I donated blood a couple weeks ago, or actually more than a month ago, and my wife got a notification from the Red Cross that she tested positive for antibodies. Mm-hmm. Now, what would that mean in terms of for COVID or Corona, or and explain what is actually what is a coronavirus?
All right. Well, there's multiple types of coronaviruses. The common cold is a coronavirus. So we test for 9 different types of coronavirus. So when we talk about this, we like to be specific. I have patients that will call me up and say, I have corona. And I go, great. Do you have a beer or do you have a cold? Then I realize COVID-19 is very specific. So when you're looking for COVID-19, you can find it in a couple different ways. But like I said, the polymerase chain reaction test is the only way to specifically identify that. So when you have antibodies, there's a couple different types of antibodies. We look at IgA, IgM, and IgG. Most labs are doing IgG, which is total antibody count. However, when you're looking at that and you have an IgG level, that could also be for a recent infection that is not specific to SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. So even antibodies can be a little bit daunting to try and figure out. Your body only continues to make antibodies for a short period of time, sometimes 3 weeks. But 3 months is the long term. That's why we don't really start retesting positive patients until after 12 weeks when you can get a reinfection. So an antibody test really doesn't tell you much. If you came back positive for antibodies today, we would have to swab you and do a PCR test to confirm whether or not you have COVID at the moment. So antibodies really are not the best way to tell if you have a current infection, or even if you had a recent COVID-19 infection, it could be something else.
Right. Now, there's a new study that's out there that says that asymptomatic people cannot transmit the disease. What's your opinion on that?
How new is this study, James?
I would say within the last week or two.
Because the WHO report that came out about 7 months ago said that asymptomatic spread was virtually zero. And so I don't know what new information the researchers have on this report, but we've known that for a very long time. Asymptomatic spread is virtually zero. However, if you live in close quarters with somebody in a household, if we test someone who's positive in the house who's symptomatic, everybody in the house is going to test positive. But those folks might not be symptomatic. You'll see different symptoms with each patient. And, you can get into different areas of like viral load, if somebody has a higher viral load than others, or underlying conditions, co-infections. I think the important thing for people to realize is that, that we go back to the testing again, right? We talked about rapid testing for a second. A rapid test is an antigen test, which is a protein test. You cannot definitively tell if somebody has COVID-19 with a rapid test. You need 9 copies of a virus in order to alert positive for a PCR test. The contrast is on a rapid test, you need 9 million to 9 billion copies to alert positive. And if you do alert positive on a rapid test, that could mean you have the common cold. So a negative means 0 and a positive means 0. What do you do with that medically? again, I think the public needs to be aware of the proper type of testing. People will run out, get a PCR test, come back positive, have no symptoms, run out to get a rapid test, come back negative, and think they're okay, and they're not. Rapid test is going to tell you nothing in the scheme of things. But as far as spread is concerned, this thing does spread a little bit more than the flu does, predominantly more than the flu. And people have to be cognizant that if you're in close quarters with someone, you can get infected. James, viruses aren't living things. Viruses are like amino acids. They remain active or inactive. So they can degrade over time and with conditions. But if the virus is active and it infects someone, it's about the replication and some of the underlying conditions and co-infections and how people may or may not get sick from this thing.
All right. So what we're seeing with the vaccine. So how does the vaccine work with the body? What's your experience with that?
You'd have to talk to the epidemiologist we work with, but my understanding is, it binds, it inhibits the binding of the spike protein that's on the coronavirus itself from binding with the cells. So it inhibits that. So there is no replication. The vaccine itself, my understanding, it's sugar, it's RMA, it's sugar, it's safe to take. I know there's some concern about, people want or don't want the vaccine, and half the country doesn't take the flu vaccine. I'm one of them. I don't get the flu vaccine. Will I get the COVID vaccine? I don't know. I know a lot of folks in my circle who have gotten it because they're frontline workers. Some of our staff has gotten it because they want to protect the public. But at the end of the day, I do believe it's safe. As far as it working, right now, we're expecting a 50% efficacy rate with the first shot and up to 95% efficacy once the second shot is done, both with the two that are out there now, the most common, the Pfizer and Moderna. But my estimation, and I've talked to a couple of epidemiologists about this, is the flu vaccine has about a 30% efficacy rate. And we expect that over time, that's what the COVID vaccine will wind up having after a few years.
So I know that you and your company have done a lot of work with a lot of different communities throughout here in New Jersey. So how does someone get in touch with your company in order to do testing and on a broad basis? How does someone do that?
Sure, they can go to mywellnessexpress.com or just give us a call. We do a lot of the police departments. We do a ton of assisted livings. We get calls just about every day for a new department, police departments, school district that wants us to come in because we've been doing this from the start. Happy to talk to anybody. We've done I think we're approaching about 12,000 tests right now. And a lot of that, is one-on-ones that we see every day in our office or, an entire police department that we might wind up doing every week.
And it's been highly effective. And I know that both you and your company are extremely diligent on what you do and how you do it. And I wanted to say thank you for you working with the communities that are out there, keeping our frontline workers safe and people in the community safe. It goes to show, what you and your company both stand for.
I appreciate that, James. Thank you.
You are welcome. And again, what was the name of the website to get a hold of you guys?
mywellnessexpress.com is the medical arm of the company.
All right. Outstanding. Michael, thank you very much for being here today. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule, and keep up the good work out there.
Anytime, James. Thanks. Oh, look at that.
Look at that. So basically, how does your testing process work, Mike?
Well, like I said before, we do a PCR test, which is a polymerase chain reaction test. That's done with a nasopharyngeal swab. That's where the virus lives. Everybody comes in asking different questions. No one wants to get a swab stuck up in their pharynx. And people always say, "Hey, does this thing go to my brain?" It doesn't. We don't really need that much of a swab to get a molecular test done. It's not going 5-6 inches up to the back of your pharynx. You're getting about an inch and a half back. It's uncomfortable, but not painful. Saliva tests, not as accurate. And we talked about the other types of testing. So we only do the PCR test through a nasopharyngeal swab, which is the only appropriate way to do it.
Nice. And what's that? mywellnessexpress.com. So please go on that and find out more information from there on how to get Michael into your community.
Thank you, James. You guys stay safe over there, okay?
You got it. Thanks, Michael. Talk to you soon.
Yep. Bye-bye.
So that's more information there on testing in the community, and Lord knows, Michael, that him and his company have been phenomenal in doing that and working with different communities throughout the state of New Jersey. And we are on our way to a break, and we will see you coming up. We have Michael Johns, former speechwriter for George H.W. Bush and the co-founder of the Tea Party movement.